Good morning, students. I am again here to teach you Geography, Chapter 1 Resources, Part 2. Dear students, in Part 1, we have read about the key points of resources and classification of natural resources. Today, here we will discuss about these classification in detail. So let's start. Students, as you all know, that things which are taken from nature and are used without much change are called natural resources. Water, air, soil, minerals, rocks, natural vegetation, and fossil fuels are examples of natural resources. Some of these resources can be used directly by us, means without any modification or processing. However, most natural resources need to be processed to produce goods fit for consumption. For example, air, water, and fruits can be used directly, but minerals have to be separated from ores. Crude petroleum has to be refined to get petrol, diesel, wax, etc. Students, thus natural resources provide us raw materials which have to be processed into useful products fit for human consumption. Natural resources can be classified in numerous ways. I have told this in my previous video also that natural resources can be classified on the basis of origin, exhaustibility, ownership, and status of development. Now, students, on the basis of exhaustibility, they are classified as renewable and non renewable resources. The resources which have the capacity or ability to reproduce or renew quickly are called renewable resources. They can be renewed by physical, mechanical, or chemical processes. Some of these resources are unlimited, like solar and wind energy. These are also called inexhaustible resources. Their quantity is not affected by human activities. The renewable resources include solar and wind energy, water, soil, forests, etc. Now, some of the renewable resources can be destroyed due to careless use. Water is the most important renewable resource, which is getting polluted due to human activities. I think students, you are very well known about this water pollution. Now, here we come to next point, non-renewable resources, that is also called exhaustible resources. The non-renewable resources are limited in reserves and it may take thousands of years to renew them. For example, coal or petroleum, if taken out completely, may take millions of years to produce them. As the time period is extremely long, such sources are considered as non renewable. Okay, students, now these are the differences between renewable and non renewable resources. Just go through it. Renewable resources are renewed or replenished by nature in a short span of time, while, on the other hand, non renewable resources may not be replenished by nature or take very long geological time to be formed again. Second point of renewable resources often available continuously like solar energy, water, etc., while non-renewable resources are exhausted after use. Example, fossils, etc. Third point, renewable resources can be divided into continuous or flow, while non-renewable resources can be recyclable or non-recyclable. These are the example of renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Solar energy drives wind and hydropower, fresh water, some soil used for agriculture, wood for construction, some animal species, example animals for transport, insulin and vaccines are the example of renewable resources. Now, energy resources, example oil, coal, natural gas, nuclear, tropical forest, biodiversity, minerals, example diamonds, gold, iron are some of the examples of non-renewable resources. Now, students, these are the pictures of some important examples of renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Just look at it. Solar energy, water, wind, they are the important example of renewable resources, and phosphate, oil, limestone, these are the non-renewable resources. Now students, on the basis of distribution, there can be ubiquitous or localized resources. Ubiquitous resources are those which are found almost everywhere on earth, such as the air we breathe and sunlight. While the resources like reserves of iron, copper, coal, etc. are not found everywhere but are confined to certain places. These are called the localized resources. The distribution of localized resources is highly uneven on the surface of the earth. Now, on the basis of their use and development, natural resources can be classified into actual resource and potential resource. Resources whose quantity is known and which are being used by men are called actual resources. For example, the coal reserve in Jharkhand is an actual resource. We know how much coal is there in the coal mines of Jharkhand, and coal is being used in many factories to produce energy. Similarly, water in the Ganges is an actual resource because we are using this water for many purposes. Now, on the other hand, resources whose actual quantity is not known and which are not being used by us at present are known as potential resources. For example, the uranium reserve in Ladakh is a potential resource which can be used in future. Another example can be the many unexplored oil wells near the western coast of India. A potential resource can change into an actual resource with proper development of technology. For example, wind energy was not being used to generate electricity in many parts of the world. Do you know this? Yes, students. Uh, in many parts of the world, uh, wind energy was not being in used. Tamil Nadu is a leading state in terms of wind energy production in India. Now, there are the differences between potential resources and actual resources. First one is a potential resource is not being used currently, while an actual resource is one which we use currently. A potential resource can prove useful and become an actual resource in the future, while an actual resource might have been a potential resource in the past. It may end up in the future. Examples of potential resources are uranium deposits in Ladakh. Example of actual resources are coal deposits. Fourth point, the entire quantity of a potential resource may not be known, while the actual quantity of an actual resource is known. Now, students, on the basis of origin, resources are classified as biotic and abiotic resources. The living things, such as plants and animals, are biotic resources. They include plants, animals, and microorganisms. Some examples of these resources are forests, agricultural crops, and wild and domestic animals. Biotic resources are capable of reproduction. We can say that biotic resources are generally renewable, while the non living things, such as land, water, minerals, and air, belong to abiotic resources. These resources can be exhausted by excessive use of resources. Okay, students? Their total reserve cannot be increased by human effort, thus, they are non renewable. These resources are in great demand for the development of industries. Now, students, these are the differences between biotic and abiotic resources. All those resources which are obtained from the biosphere and have life are known as biotic resources, while on the other hand, all those resources which are composed of non living things are called abiotic resources. Second point, biotic resources can be classified as producers, consumers, and decomposers, while on the other hand, abiotic resources can be classified as renewable and non renewable. Third point, forests, livestock, human beings are examples of biotic resources, while light, rain, rocks, soil, water are examples of abiotic resources. Now, students, that's all for today. In our next video, we will read about the key points of human made resources and concept of conservation of resources and sustainable development. Now, students, but before I leave, I want to tell you something that you have to read this chapter very carefully and try to solve the questions regarding to this chapter, part 1 and part 2. Till then, stay home, stay safe.